It needs to be wider. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to TFI CAD Tips. Right, this video is a little bit rushed. I've had to just sort of fumble this together, and I'll explain why. I came across a utility. It's just a bit of an explanation as to what this video is all about. I came across a utility created by a guy in South Africa who works for an Autodesk partner. It's an Inventor benchmark tool. It automates a whole load of benchmark tests, specific CPU and video benchmark tests, and then compiles them together, and it allows you to compare them with other people. And the reason why that's kind of so genius is, well, especially to me, is the last 4 or 5 weeks. I'll let you into a future insight into a future video that I'm doing. The last 4 or 5 weeks, I have been extensively testing Inventor on various different pieces of hardware. Just before Christmas, I was fortunate enough to get a Dell Precision, just on loan over Christmas, Dell Precision workstation. It was a T5810 workstation. It's one of the current workstations that they sell. That workstation had a Xeon 10 core CPU. It's not the most powerful Xeon that they do, but it's probably in the top 3 or top 4 most powerful Xeons that you can put in a workstation as of today. So knowing that with this workstation that the CPU was never going to be a bottleneck, that's part of the testing that I was doing. I wanted to put various different graphics cards into this Dell workstation to see how Inventor performs. Does certain graphics cards actually have that much of an impact on the performance of, spinning models around and loading things and whatever else? So that's what I've been doing over Christmas. I've had I was fortunate all along. I've had one of these cards, which is an old NVIDIA Quadro 2000 card. That's about 6 years old, and I've been in touch with a nice guy at AMD who sent me this. This is the AMD W9100. It is an absolute powerhouse. It is a colossal behemoth of a video card. 16 gig of onboard RAM. It is, I'm pretty sure it is one of the most, if not the most powerful video card in the world, as of today. Like, not for gaming. It's no good for gaming. It's not going to run Crysis 3 on Ultra at 1 million frames per second. But in terms of workstation graphics, it's more powerful than NVIDIA's most powerful Quadro card. So I had that. I've also had the Quadro M4000, which was one of the new Maxwell-based Quadro cards, which was shipped with the Dell. That was something else that I had on hand. And as well as that, I had my GeForce GTX 970 gaming card as well. So 4 different graphics cards I've had to put into this Dell workstation and then test Inventor. So that's what I've been doing over Christmas. And then I've been doing it all manually. I've been loading up models, spinning them around, writing down frames, and testing express mode and doing this and doing that, and loading up models and how fast does this happen, all manual, swapping video cards in and out. And then this guy comes along with his automated benchmark tool, and I'm like, oh my god, that would have saved us a lot of time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to crack on with that because those are real world tests. This is an automated thing, which there's ifs and buts and caveats to that. So instead of just doing everything in one video, I thought I'll split this out. I'll show you guys this utility because it'll be helpful for you. This is something you guys can download and then run on your own computers to see what the results are that you're going to get. So I'm going to show you what the tool is. I'm going to show you what my results are. I'm going to show you a collation of other people's results, and we're going to have a look at those as well because there's going to be some extremely fascinating results in there. There's going to be some eye-opening results in there. So across to Inventor. Goodbye. Across to Inventor, and this is the utility here. It is called Inventor Bench. Now I don't know why I've got 2 versions of it open. I just need the one. So there's Inventor Bench. This is a very well written utility. It is neat, it is straight to the point, and it works straight away. It is really good. The guy who's done it, I need to give him a quick plug because frankly this guy is an absolute genius. This is the thread that I found it on the Autodesk Inventor community forums. The thread's called How Fast Is Your Inventor PC Really? And you'll see there's a hyperlink here that will take you to the A36, wherever it is. It'll let you download it and install it. It's a clean, as far as I know, don't quote me on it, but as far as I know, it's a clean download. There's nothing dodgy in it. This guy's an Autodesk partner, so he's, it's a legit source. He's a really nice guy. This is his website if you're interested in his other stuff. And I was, because when I saw how just slick and tidy this application was, I thought, well, what else has he done? And he's got some nice tools on his website. So it's called Micrographics. I think they're based in South Africa. There's BOM tools, DXF tools, sheet metal tools, various aluminium extrusion libraries there on his website. So these are obviously things he's done for customers, I would suspect. And then he's made them available for other people. So go and check that out. Download this utility. Once you've got it running, it works apparently on 2014, 15, and 16, but I've downloaded it on 2014 and it didn't work on 2014. It just wouldn't detect that Inventor was open. But 2016 Inventor, it works like a charm. So this is what it does. You click the, you make sure all 3 tests are ticked. So basically what it's going to do is it performs a series of automated tests that are designed to stress test your computer's CPU, graphics, and hard disk write and read speeds based on functions by Inventor. So let's run the selected tests. And you'll see Inventor shuts down and it reopens. So that's going to test Inventor's open and load time, which isn't really that important, but I guess it is still it's still your hard disk read write speed. Then it'll start a new part file and it'll perform a series of modeling tests. And it's quite hypnotic to watch it. It does some patterns. It'll then do some view orbit tests, which is going to test your graphics frames per second. Frames per second is pretty much the king when it comes to visual fidelity. It's how many frames per second is your graphics card allowing your monitor to display. More frames per second, the better. If you think about it, 1 frame per second, it's a pretty jerky video. If your PC is only going to refresh itself once, frames per second and refresh rate are different things, but if it's only essentially refreshing itself once or twice every second, it's going to be pretty jerky. So the goal, they say the goal is around 60 frames per second is absolutely ideal. 30 frames per second is manageable, but in an ideal world, you want 60 frames per second. Now we're on to the drawing test. So it's going to perform a series of drawing view creations, and this is testing CPU and multi-threading. Within Inventor, drawing views are multi-threaded, so Inventor is able to utilize all the cores in the CPU at this point. So this is a good CPU test. In theory, PCs with more cores are going to perform better at that test. That's the idea. But that's the absolute beauty of this test, is we can now have a look at a whole series, a wide variety of different people's results and then compare them. Now, these are my results. Must say, my results here that you're seeing on screen are distorted because I'm running screen capture software, and that is one of the caveats of this benchmarking tool. It is automated, and most of the people who are running this test aren't aware of other processes that are going to be running on their PCs, which are going to distort this utility. Now, just to give you proof of that, I've got a saved screenshot of the test that I run yesterday when my PC was doing nothing else. This is it here. I was getting 167 frames per second shaded with edges mode, but today I'm only getting 120. That is a phenomenal drop. That is an absolutely huge drop in performance. The drawing view sequential view creation time, 17.63 seconds. Yesterday was only 14 seconds, so it's added an extra 3 seconds onto the drawn view creation time. What else have we got here? The CPU test, again, 2 seconds longer to do the modeling test. So it's huge. I mean, it's a huge difference there. It's a huge difference in terms of a percentage, but overall, waiting 2 more seconds for Inventor to do something isn't the end of the world. So it's not like it's night and day, but there is a visible performance difference. So those are my results, and that's how you go about performing the benchmark yourself. Now, I highly recommend you download this and have a look at it, and then just see what your PC is like. It'll list the entirety of all your specs here as well. Your graphics card, all the RAM slots that you're using, your hard disk. The hard disk feedback is wrong. By the looks of it, he's based the hard disk reporting on the ports rather than what drives are assigned in Windows. So this drive here, that's just a secondary drive that I've got running. My primary drive is a solid state drive. It's a OCZ Vertex solid state drive, but obviously I haven't got that plugged into the first SATA port on my motherboard, so it's not reporting that as hard disk 1. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't make any difference to the test results. It's just purely on report and feedback. And then this is what you'll see is this is the most important part of the whole test, is the CPU information. So that's going to list how many cores you have, how many CPUs you've got, and clock speed. Again, clock speed feedback on this isn't perfect. It's only going to report the base clock. So my CPU is 4 gigahertz base clock, but it will automatically turbo itself to 4.4 gigahertz. Again, just for proof of that, if we go to CPU Z, which is a pretty much industry standard CPU reporting tool. You'll see my CPU is running at 4.4 gigahertz. That's 4397 megahertz. But obviously this is only reporting 4 gigahertz. So that's the thing, right? Another thing I need to make people aware of is laptop results are going to be quite significantly distorted, or they could be significantly distorted, and that is absolutely no fault of this utility. Laptops can thermal throttle. One of the downsides of using a laptop is the heat dissipation. If a laptop can't dissipate heat from the unit, it will lower the performance of the components in the laptop to allow them to cool better. And when that happens, you're going to get a degradation in performance. The laptop will not work as good in order to keep itself cool. You're only really going to get that if you have been using the laptop quite extensively and pushing it hard for quite some time. That's when you're going to start to see thermal throttling. But there's no real proof whether the results that you're seeing from laptops that happened or not. You cannot be sure. Also, laptops have power saving modes. Now, a lot of people who are using laptops just aren't aware of that. Dell ship a laptop and by default will have the bloody power saving mode switched on, or someone might have put it on because they were running on battery, and then when they plugged it into the wall they forgot to switch it back to high performance or balanced. So if the laptop's running in power saving mode, again, you could see hugely distorted results from laptops because of that. So there's various different things that can affect the scores and the results. So what I'm going to do is show you a series of results that have been formulated from that Inventor thread on the forum website. There was 26 results posted in total, and what I've done is categorized all the results into FirePro graphics cards, GeForce Quadro and Radeon. So those are the 4 different kinds of cards that were, well, it's really the only 4 kinds of cards these days, really. So you've got FirePro, which is AMD's workstation graphics cards. You've got GeForce, which is NVIDIA's gaming card. Quadro, which is NVIDIA's workstation card, and then Radeon, which is AMD's gaming card. As well as that, I've taken all the results and I've made an intensive CPU test folder and then ordered all the results based on who did the best in the CPU test, and the same for who did the best in the video test. The idea being, I can look at who did the best and then I can see what hardware they were using, and then I can compare that against other results who had better hardware. Yeah, this is really interesting. This is really interesting. So first things first, what I'll do is go to the video intensive test. So this is frames per second. Now you can see there's an absolutely colossal variation here in frames per second. So the lowest score was 23 frames per second on the view test, the highest being 209 frames per second. So we'll have a look at the lowest one first. So this is the worst performing system when it came to the graphical intensive test. This guy was running a Quadro card. Granted though, it's an old Quadro card. This is an NVIDIA Quadro 600, which is an extremely old graphics card. Now let's go over to the Google and let's Google Quadro 600. So the Quadro 600 is, we're not talking about the K600 either. This is the old school Quadro 600, that one there. You can see just by looking at it, it's a pretty feeble card. And that's pushing out 23 frames per second on the graphical results. So that was the worst performing card. The next worst performing card was this is really fascinating. This is the Quadro K3000M. The K3000M. This is the mid-range graphics card from NVIDIA. Well, it's now the old, it's the previous gen series. Now, when you're thinking about Quadro cards, the Quadro K cards are the Kepler cards. We're now up to M, Maxwell cards. So anything with the K in the Quadro name is previous gen, but that's not to say they're not good. They are still very powerful and fairly recent. There's going to be more PCs out there with K cards than M cards, but the K cards are the previous gen. So this guy's got a K3000M, the M meaning it's the mobile graphics card. So this is a laptop. So he's got the K3000M. He's got a Core i7-3820QM. And his frames per second is 23.72, which is absolutely dreadful. It's a dreadful score. If I was this guy, I'd be looking at this and I'd be thinking, I need to do something. And just looking at this myself, he needs to upgrade his graphics drivers because he's running 32762. So when you're looking at NVIDIA's graphics drivers signatures, that is version 327.62. That's an old graphics driver. I'd be upgrading that straight away, and you might see immediately a performance boost from upgrading his graphics drivers. What else has he got in here? Again, you can't rely on the hard disk You can't rely on the hard disk reporting here, so it's not easy to tell whether or not the rest of the results are impacted by, maybe it's a mechanical drive that needs defragged, or it's just an old drive, who knows. But having said that, this here is a Samsung SSD 840 EVO. That's a solid state drive, and a very good one at that. So he's got good save times and start times for hard drive read and write. Also, his CPU intensive tests are not bad, they're not terrible. So this here, the fact that he's got a horrible graphics FPS suggests that either something went wrong in the test, there was something going on his laptop at the time, it was thermal throttling, there was other applications running in the background, his PC could have been running a virus scan, he could have had power save mode on, all sorts. But the fact that he's got such a low score on a K3000 with an i7, I would be if I was him, I'd be looking at something going wrong. So various other results. I mean, there's 20 odd results. I can't go through them all. What I would say though, and what I do need to point out, is the top of the list, right? The guy with 209 frames per second, which is lightning fast. That is buttery smooth. This guy is running an AMD R9 290. It doesn't report the exact proper variant here, but I've been in touch with the guy who did these results, and he has an R9 290. It's a Sapphire R9 290 gaming card. It's a gaming card that he's got in this, and this has peaked every other PC with results that have been submitted via this benchmarking tool. The gaming card comes out top of the stack. But it's not just that. What you're going to see a bit later on is the video card is not the be-all and end-all when it comes to the graphical intensive results. This guy has the R9 290 gaming card. He's pushing out 209 frames per second, but he has an Intel Core i7 590 Extreme Edition CPU. That's 8 cores running at 3 gigahertz. Now, that's 3 gigahertz base speed. Now, I'm assuming the 590, which one is it? The 5960X will have a turbo clock on it. So, actually, I've got the Intel website here. So, we want the 5960. That's the processor there. So, yeah, but this turbo clocks up to 3.5 gigahertz. So, he's got 8 cores at 3.5 gigahertz. Now, there's a lot of mixed tales out there about how Inventor is a single-threaded application, and it doesn't make use of multi-cores. My tests have shown up until this point that when you're viewing and zooming and orbiting, Inventor is actually using most, if not all, of the threads on your CPU when it comes to rotating the model. Various other functions with Inventor won't use all the cores, but viewing and orbiting will. And what I've also found, and this is going to be more prominent later on, is that the CPU plays a much bigger role in how Inventor performs visually than your graphics card does. Now, there's a lot of science. Again, I know I'm talking a lot here, but it is that kind of video. There's a hell of a lot of science that goes into how applications interact with hardware when it comes to graphics cards. You've got all kinds of standards that need to be adhered to, how objects on screen interact with various different operating system units and whatever else. The way I'm coming from with this test, as well as my future video, which I'm going to be doing another benchmarking video, I'm going to have to ignore the science, because this video, the benchmarking videos, are for the benefit of end consumers. And end consumers don't care about science. They just want to know, if I buy this PC with this card in it, this CPU, is it going to be better than X other laptop or desktop? I don't care about standards. I don't care about DirectX, OpenGL. I don't care about any of that crap. I just want to know, if I buy this, is it going to be better? And that's where I'm coming from with these tests. So I appreciate there is a hell of a lot of science that goes into this, but I'm making a conscious choice to bypass that science and just look at hard facts. What card is better? Which hardware is better than comparison to other pieces of hardware? So this was the biggest performing machine when it came to the visual test. 209 frames per second on an R9 290 gaming card with a 5960 Extreme. So basically what we're saying is the most powerful computer for visually powering Inventor in terms of frames per second is 100% a gaming machine. This CPU here is a gaming CPU. It's also productivity based. It's got a lot of cores, but it's not a Xeon. It's not a Xeon, so it's not a workstation grade CPU. This is a common and a popular choice for gamers, and obviously the AMD Radeon R9 is a gaming card. So this is 100% a gaming based computer. And talking about components, the RAM, I'm not going to be mentioning the RAM that much because this test is so lightweight that it doesn't actually really test your RAM. You're never going to get anywhere near 32 gig of RAM. In fact, even if you had 8 gig of RAM in your system, it's not going to be a bottleneck because this test is not going to max out your RAM. What might be a factor is your RAM speed, but it's going to be very, very minimal. It's going to be absolutely minimal. But RAM quantity is not a factor here. And again, I'm going to try and perform some kind of benchmark in the future to show that if you had 4 gig of RAM in a system and you're working on a very small data set, sticking 32 gig of RAM into that system and working on that same small data set is not going to give you a performance boost. But that's just words, and it needs to be backed up with visual evidence. So that was the best score when it came to visuals. The second highest was my PC. So this is the PC that I'm working on right now. So my PC is it's a gaming card. It's a GTX 970 gaming card, and my CPU is a i7. Again, it's not a Xeon, it's an i7 4790K 4-core, clocked at 4.4 gigahertz. And I had 167 frames per second on the visual test. Third best, again, it's a guy, and ironically, this guy has very, very almost the exact same computer as I do. He has an i7 4790K, same processor, GeForce GTX 970, same graphics card, and his results are within acceptable tolerance. So he was getting 155 frames per second, I got 167, but that could be down to the graphics card manufacturer. That could be down to, again, cooling. He could have had a different cooling unit on his CPU, which is, maybe the CPU did thermal throttle. Who knows? He could have had different background applications running, which caused the PC to slow down ever so slightly. And to get from 167 frames per second on the visual test down to 155, it could have been something extremely minor, which caused such a marginal drop in performance. So these tests, I'd say, in terms of visuals, is what I'd expect. What I didn't expect, though, was such a huge, colossal difference in the CPU-intensive test. So my PC ran a total of 10.59 seconds to finish all the CPU intensive test results. His took 16. That's 60% longer it took for him to do the CPU intensive test results with the exact same CPU. That's mind-boggling. But it does just go to show that you probably do need to run this benchmark test about 4 or 5 times. Shutting down anything you've got in the background, shut down email, definitely shut down Chrome because that kills your CPU. Shut down anything that you've got open and then run the test again. So that was me and that was someone else. Then fourth, we have, we're looking at the visuals. We've got the Intel i7 6700. So this is a new Skylake CPU running at 4 gigahertz. Again, that could be turbo clocked. And we've got 4 cores and 8 logical processors. The graphics card is a gaming card. It's an R9 390. So that's a newer, again, this is very interesting. The R9 390 is a newer graphics card than the R9 290, which came top of the stack. So the R9 290 was pushing out 209 frames per second. The R9 390, which is a more powerful card, was only pushing out 150. I wouldn't say that's marginal. That's 50 frames per second. That's a huge difference. What other differences are there? Well, the guy who pushed out the biggest numbers for the visual test was running a better CPU. So take from that what you will. The better the CPU, the better the graphics test. And that's the message from those results. So now we're into 5th and 6th place. We're getting quite far down here. Here's another interesting one. This is a guy running the exact same processor as myself. Intel i7 4790K. He's got a Quadro K2200 and he's running 115 frames per second. So, yeah, there's some interesting results there. Now, this one is by far, this result here is what spawned me to do this video. This PC, right, I don't know if it's immediately obvious to most people, so I'll probably need to explain what you're looking at here. This PC, if you were to buy it, would cost you probably more than your car. It's at least £25,000, probably around $30,000 to $40,000 worth of PC here. This PC has a 10-core Xeon with 20 logical cores. So that's with hyperthread, and this has got 20 cores. It's an Xeon E5-2687W V3 at 3.1 gigahertz, and I know that this CPU turbo clocks to 3.5 gigahertz, but more importantly, there's 2 of these CPUs in this PC. He has a total of 20 CPU cores and 40 logical processors. That is absolutely phenomenal. That is a beast of a machine. It's an absolute beast. He's 64 gig of RAM, and he's got a Quadro K6000 in there. The K6000, it's previous gen, but the K6000 was for quite some time the most powerful graphics card NVIDIA did for a long time. You could not buy, I think a Tesla might be more powerful, but you're talking silly money there. But that off the shelf is the most powerful Quadro card that you can get. And this guy, his visual score is absolutely dreadful, 112 frames per second. In comparison, a guy with a K2200, this graphics card, the K6000 on its own, if you were to buy that on its own, you're looking at probably around $4,000 worth of video card there. And it's been beaten by a GTX 970, hands down, substantially beaten by a GTX 970, which is a $300 video card. So again, these results are absolutely mind-blowing, because you would think, unless you see things like this, you would think that the more money you threw at a PC, the better the components you put in that PC, then the better performance you're going to get just passively. 2 CPUs with 10 cores each, K6000, it's going to blow everything out the water. Not so. Absolutely not so. So his frames per second, 112.85. So in terms of the scores, he's here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 PCs that are better than his. The next one down is running a GTX 770. That's an old gaming card. It's still a half decent gaming card, but even when the 7 Series GeForce cards were out, that wasn't top of the stack. The 780 Ti was. Well, it's actually the Titan X might have been, but it's that's sort of a mid-range to just above mid-range gaming card, and he came in at a couple of frames per second lower than a $30,000 flipping workstation. It's absolutely insane that this test is just highlighting how certain components interact with Inventor. It really is mind-blowing. So those are the visual tests. Now let's go across to the CPU intensive tests. Right. In this test, the lower score is the best. Now, in terms of the visual test, the higher score was the best. Now, in this one, it's the lower one. So this was how long does it take Inventor to perform all the CPU intensive tests. So the quickest was 10.26 seconds, and that is the guy again who was running the AMD graphics card. So this guy here, he won the visual card, he won the visual test, and he won the CPU test. So his PC is pretty beast. It's pretty beast. It's an absolute flyer when it comes to performing, but it's still relatively cheap. This PC is still relatively cheap. That graphics card, the R9 290, if you Google it, it's a $300 card. The i7 the 5960X, let's have a look at this. I'm assuming you can still buy it because it is old. Let's have a look. Okay, so you're looking at 877 quid for that processor, which is what, around $1,000. So for $1,400, you can have that CPU and that graphics card. You'd obviously need to buy a case and a motherboard and a power supply unit and etc. etc. But I would say about $1,500, $1,600, you could probably get yourself a PC that just blows out of the water a proper CAD workstation with two Xeons in and a K6000. A $30,000 workstation is beaten by a gaming PC worth less than $2,000. That's the point of this video. That's the point of this video. So that's the winner. That's the winner of the CPU test. Second is me. That's me. So that's my CPU, i7 4790K. My total time was 10.59, so I'm like 0.3 of a second behind him. So we're talking here absolutely marginal differences between my CPU and his. But he's got 4 more cores. So again, that's quite interesting. He's got 4 more cores to play with, but he came in at 0.3 of a second, over 10 seconds when it came to benchmarking the CPU. So that is really interesting. So that was me in second place. In third place, with a second time difference between the winner and himself, it's the same CPU as me. It's the i7 4790K. So we're seeing a trend here. The i7s are winning all the benchmarks. The Core i7 is winning all of the benchmarks against all of the Xeons. What's not in the top 3? We're looking here at a CPU test, a pure 100% CPU benchmark test, and what is not at the top of the stack? The PC with 2 10-core Xeons in. He is not first, he's not second, he's not third, he's not fourth, he's not fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, he's ninth. His score was 15.7 seconds in the CPU test. The PC with 2 Xeons in, 20 cores, was beaten by an old Xeon E5 1620 V2 with 4 cores. 20 cores was beaten by 4 cores. In fact, I mean, actually, this is I've just spotted this. This is mind-blowing. That PC with the 2 Xeons was beaten by a laptop. This here is an MQ processor. That's a laptop. K2100M. That's a laptop. This guy ran a score of 14.13 seconds for the CPU test, whereas the guy with the 2 Xeons scored a 15.7. This is what I've got to say, though. What I've got to make it absolutely clear is there still could have been, this guy could have been doing something on his PC at the time. You just don't know. You just don't know. And that's why I'm going to follow up this video with some real benchmarks. I'm going to be showing you something, live video of the benchmark actually happening, so you can see what's going on in the PC, and there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that certain hardware is performing as it should. But this is a bloody eye-opener. It really is an eye-opener. So that's pretty much it. I think that's all I really need to say on the benchmarks. Download the tool yourself. Benchmark your PC. You've seen quite a lot of the results here. What I'll do, I'll just flick through all the different results, and then you can sort of pause the video and you can then compare yours against all of these. There's loads of different CPUs here. So we've got a Core i5 here. This is a laptop, Core i5M with a Quadro 1000M. We've got an i7. Again, that's an old Sandy Bridge 3 Series i7. We've got an i7 4820K. The 4820K is actually, I think it's a better CPU than mine. Mine's the 4790. And mine beat this one on the benchmark tests, which is interesting. 3930K, i7, 6700. That's a Skylake mobile CPU. In fact, this isn't. I know whose PC this is. It's Neil's. Hello, Neil's. This is an Alienware R17. No, it's an Alienware 17R3. So it's a new Alienware laptop. And this got some really good scores actually for a laptop. Really good scores. So he ran a 17.37 benchmark on the CPU tests, 104 frames per second. So that's good scores. Good scores for a laptop. Couple of things which again I probably should have mentioned earlier, but you need to pay attention when you're running the tests what your hardware settings are. So you go to Inventor's application options and have a look at the quality of the you go into the application options hardware tab. You've got quality, performance, and software graphics. I ran my test with the hardware setting on performance. Now it sort of differs. Some people run it on performance, some people run it on quality, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. Maybe a few frames per second on the visual test, but it's not that significant. Also, pay attention to the resolution of your monitor. My native resolution is 3440 by 1440, so my graphics card and CPU have to handle more pixels. So for the purposes of the benchmark test, I lowered my resolution down to 1080p, 1920 by 1080. Just as a fair comparison, 1080p is the most popular resolution these days, so it's kind of a standard to run that resolution. So we've got i7 6700, so that's a desktop Skylake. We've got an i7 2600. That's an old one. That really is an old CPU. I would say average scores 18 seconds, 81 frames per second, which is still good. I mean, it's by no means top in the charts, but 81 frames per second is visible and it is fluent. So that's a good score. i7. This one is a very, very old i7. It's probably a first gen i7, I would say. And he's got, I think the CPU time reflects that. So he's into the 24 second category there, which isn't brilliant. We've got an i5, so this is the Xeon. So this is the first Xeon, and 15 seconds. So that was 5 seconds off the winner, which that's the guy that had the 5960 Extreme Edition CPU. So there's a Xeon i7 4800 laptop, another laptop. We've got a 5820K, which is again, it's a pretty good CPU. There's a pretty good CPU, 6 cores, 3.3 gigahertz base clock, 13.8 seconds on the CPU test. Again, a first gen. Again, you can see that it's a first gen i7 CPU, and that's running a 22-second CPU test. 4820K, we've got an i7 again, first gen i7. Christ, nearly 30 seconds on the CPU test. That's dreadful. That's pretty slow. And E5, another Xeon. That's a very old Xeon as well. It's a E5-1607. That's an old Xeon. And he's got 21 seconds on the CPU test. 5960X, so there's our winner. He won all the tests with that PC. E5, there's the guy who, if I was him, I'd be really pissed. He spent a fortune on a PC and it's absolutely, and by no means, the best performing. What I will say though, so I'll just flick through the rest of them here. What I will say, that guy with the, let's just jump back to him. So just to wrap this up, and I'm going to repeat this again in the video that I do in the future. These PCs here, which cost 30, 40, 50, 60, upwards of, $100,000, they're not going to be the best when it comes to running applications like Inventor, because Inventor calls for resource in short bursts. When it comes to things like loading files, saving files, spinning models around, it's requiring resource from the computer in small bursts. So it's saying, give me some CPU power, give me some GPU power for a few seconds. So for that, that's when higher clock speeds matter. Your CPU clock speed is absolutely king. Things like the cache, things like the number of cores and bandwidth, that kind of thing, the bus speeds, that makes a difference, but probably marginal. It's all about the clock speed. That's the most important thing here. It can use that clock speed to perform tasks quicker in short bursts. When it comes to those PCs that cost an absolute fortune, you'll find that those PCs are performing tasks over the course of hours, days, and weeks. So think of here's a good example, right? The movie Avatar. To render something like Avatar would have required immense CPU power over huge portions of time. To do video renders for commercial graphics, for TV advertising, for sales leaflets and brochures, magazine print quality stuff. To get those quality of renders, you're going to need to set something away and leave it going overnight, possibly over a couple of days. That's when 2 CPUs with 20 cores is really going to get you the benefit. That's when having 2 GPUs in your system, 2 absolute massive GPUs in your system is going to get the benefit. It's when you need that power over a longer period of time. But for short bursts, these type of PCs at this price range, you're just not going to get the benefits from them at all. And that's real. That's not just talk. That is real. You're seeing that here. And in the video I do in the future as well, I'm going to prove that as well. I'm going to prove that because I have this CPU that you see here, the E5-2687W. That is the exact same CPU which was in the Dell Precision Workstation that I had on my desk over Christmas. So I can use this CPU with its 10 cores, and I've benchmarked it against my i7 with 4 cores, doing the exact same tasks on the exact same models. Which of the 2 CPUs is quicker? Well, you probably can guess my i7 was quicker than the Xeon. So that's it. That's the tool. I think this video's went on for quite some time. If you've got this far, well done. Yeah, go and download this utility, benchmark your PC. The thing that it doesn't tell you, the tool does not tell you, and I guess it can't really tell you where your PC has an inadequacy. So it's not going to make recommendations to you. But if you're getting absolutely dreadful visual scores, then you can possibly look at like your graphics driver. Is your graphics card too old? Is it not? Is it your CPU? Is it if you're having dreadful hard disk save times, for example, you might need to upgrade to a solid state drive, which in turn might increase the rest of your scores. Things like that. You can sort of piece the puzzle together, or post something on the forums and show you results, and someone else can possibly advise. So I think that's probably about enough. Thank you very much, guys. If it was useful, press like on the video, subscribe if you haven't done already, and cheers, bye.